All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brandon. This is Born Again XJW, and today's agenda is we are going to be watching more of this judicial committee meeting between these three elders and Jesse and his wife, McCall. This is going to be part 2 of our review, so if you haven't seen part 1, you're going to be a little bit lost in today's video. Of course, I am going to post again a link to the original video itself so you can watch it uninterrupted if you want to watch the entire thing without my commentary. But you're going to see a couple things happen today, guys. You are going to see the elders doing 2 things specifically. One of the things is they're not really listening to Jesse or McCall. They're basically waiting for them to stop talking so that they can get on to the next question, and they're trying to ask them questions in order to build a case against them. So that's kind of happening during this actual meeting or this questioning. And then the second thing that they're going to do is they're going to play around with definitions. We're going to get into that straight away. They're going to try and, go over what is the definition of the term apostasy, which they're going to misapply the New World Translation's fake definition of the word apostasy. We're going to get into all of that. So anyways, per the usual, guys, let's go ahead and grab your favorite beverage. This happens to be coffee. And let's go ahead and hop right into this, okay?
Truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God.
What do you, how do you understand the term apostate? You referred to a dictionary definition? What was
Right,
it?
yeah, there's the dictionary definition, which is just, changing a set of beliefs or changing your religion. And then the Watchtower's definition is the standing away from worship. I can't remember the rest. There's a couple of phrases that they use, but taking a step back from worship, something along that. I wish I could remember.
Well, did you know there's a definition in our glossary?
No, actually, I
World
didn't.
Translation?
No.
The term in Greek, apostasia, comes from a verb literally meaning to stand away from. The noun has the sense of desertion, abandonment, or rebellion. In the Christian Greek scriptures, apostasy is used primarily with regard to those who defect from true worship.
And then, of course, it gives some scriptural examples of apostasy in the first century. So does that, and this question is for you first, McCall. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely not.
How about you, Brother Zuki?
No, I don't feel that way.
So when you described yourself as an apostate, what did you had something different than?
Yeah, I didn't even know this was back here. I was literally going by the definition in the dictionary.
Okay, so for the sake of not sounding repetitious, I've already gone through the whole definition of the word apostasy thing slightly in the last video, but I really addressed it in one of the first judicial committee meetings that I reviewed, and again, I'll post a link to that playlist so you can watch it. I believe it's video number 3 or 4, part 3 or 4. But anyways, there's a actual definition to the word apostasy, and then there's a definition that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has manufactured. So, the word exists 2,000 years ago, or maybe even further back than that, and then here we have an organization that comes along about 1,800 years later and just decides to, hey, we're just going to absorb that word and we're going to give it our own definition, and everyone's going to just have to know that. Like, everyone knows that's what apostate means. It doesn't. So, like I said, for the sake of not sounding repetitive, that is some research that you can go and do on your own. But I do like that McCall basically said, no, I wasn't even aware that this was in the back of the New World Translation. Your made-up terms and your made-up rules, I'm not playing by them because I wasn't aware that they existed. And I'm pretty sure that she already knows about the Shepherd, the Flock of God book. So they actually know that they're playing by a set of rules that they should not know actually exists, but they do. In fact, every once in a while, I'd like to point out, we're going to go further into the video, but every once in a while, when she posted the video, she will actually type up on the screen. So if you're listening audio only, you might miss it, but she'll actually type up on the screen, I was saying this because of that reason. I wasn't saying this or answering this question because I didn't want to get trapped. Like, you will hear Jesse and McCall both. It sounds like they're giving non-answers. So if you didn't have the text on the screen of her explaining them and why they were answering certain ways, you wouldn't realize that they're giving non-answers on purpose, because most of the time the questions that they're being asked are trap questions to build a case against them. And then they can never really give absolute yes or no answers, because again, it's going to be used against them. So they just have to be really cautious with what they say. So anyways, let's go ahead and keep going, but they're going to sort of, I don't know, there's just so many little awkward parts, but let's try and waffle through this some more.
Question, Rick?
I had one while you're talking about Lacey. You know that Lacey was away from her family because she, stand off. You know that she's not in good association then, correct? Because her parents are, in the truth. And you said that she had not a whole lot
I
to
really
say to
didn't
them.
know. I
Okay.
really didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about why she didn't choose to get baptized. I really didn't know.
Well, I was just wondering why you would have a luncheon with somebody that really,
You know, she just got married.
Mhm.
So when did we have lunch? November. So she got married in like, I don't know, September. And it was just kind of like in the back of my mind of like, I never even met the guy she's gonna marry. Dale, the Kettles were at her wedding, so obviously they associated with her. So was it wrong to have lunch? Yeah, maybe. I just personally wanted to know what part of the truth why didn't it grab hold of her, I guess.
Mhm.
Was it just bad association at school? Was it, something family that happened? I just truly wanted to know. I couldn't get an answer from her sister. Her sister didn't know. So
Were
I
you
just thought
asking-
I'd ask her.
Oh, you're asking questions like that because maybe you're thinking that way, then you're just seeing if it was in line with her. Is
Not
that?
necessarily.
No?
I just really truly wanted to know. I mean, we spent like 10 years together
Mhm.
growing up.
Mhm.
She hadn't even seen my kids,
Mhm.
and it's just one of those things as a parent, you just start thinking about people in your past, and it's like, yeah, I haven't even seen her. I didn't even congratulate her on getting
Mhm.
married. I'm glad she got married. Then you're not living in a moral lifestyle anymore. So I thought maybe the more positive encouragement and love she would get may help her to see the good side of things, I guess.
Mhm.
All right, so we have McCall again talking, giving an answer. Then we have the elder. He doesn't know what to do with that. So what they'll do a lot of times is they're like Cerberus. They're like that three-headed dog, that guards the underworld in Dante's Inferno. When you attack one and defeat it, then the other one like rears its head up, except a lot less threatening. So anyways, Brother Cerberus calls in Brother Eric, because I don't have a name for him yet. And he's like, Eric, do you have anything that you want to ask? And Eric starts off with not a question, but he's like, that, I think the girl's name was Lacey. He's like, that Lacey's not good association, right? So translation for those of you who don't know, either you're not a Jehovah's Witness or you're not a former Jehovah's Witness, bad association is someone who is either A, a non-witness, or B, there's someone who is growing up in the Jehovah's Witnesses. They might be 18 and they haven't, they're such a horrible person, they haven't made the decision to be baptized yet, so they're obviously spiritually weak. Again, all of that is sarcasm. But that's what he means by bad association. So it's essentially like being marked, soft shunned. People aren't really supposed to do extracurricular activities with you. And by extracurricular, I mean like having a meal. So he leads off with that. And then what I think is the most disturbing is, again, you're going to hear a lot of and it's them waiting for her mouth to stop moving so they can come in with another set of questions. They're not actually hearing her. And evidence of that was the last recording we just listened to, where she gave her answer, and then as soon as she shut her mouth, the Brother Eric, he steps in and he's like, oh, is it because you're having doubts and you wanted to see if someone else was thinking like you? Like maybe her thinking was the same as you because you have doubts. So he was trying to use that to, again, as evidence against her. So this entire thing is a sham. This is, again, guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent. And in this case, you're guilty and we're going to prove you guilty. So that's what this judicial committee meeting is. It's just, we've already made the decision that you and your husband are guilty. We're more than likely going to disfellowship you, but we're going to go through this process of this judicial committee meeting. I think for several reasons. I think that some elders are drunk on power, what little power they actually have, which they don't. But I think there's a little bit of that going on. So they really try and they want to make sure that these meetings happen because, you know, they love gossip and they love, you know, spreading this to their wives, and their wives can go and spread it into the congregation, and all that gossiping and backbiting that's not supposed to happen in a Christian congregation definitely happens after these elder meetings. So we're going to go ahead and continue on because I don't have much more to say about that.
So I wanted to ask you regarding, like we were going back to the thought about, you know, how you feel, like how you are defining, you know, what's happened, you know, as far as to you, as far as your beliefs, things that you were taught. So do you feel, McCall and Jesse, do you feel that, you know, the things that you were taught, you know, as far as, you know, when you study the Bible, whoever studied with you, your parents, you know, do you feel you believe something different?
I'd say 90% I believe the same, and there's a good 10% that I really have a lot of questions about, that I really wanted to write the branch and give them the references and ask them if they could please help me understand, you know, why there's such a difference in historical books versus some of the other books that they produce.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way because we communicate a lot, so it's pretty much how I feel too.
Okay. So, are you all, you know, like, because some of the things we talked about, you know, we were visiting with you, we was pretty specific, you know. So, do you have questions about those things, or are you sold on, like, you know, some of the things we talked about?
I'm not sold on anything. I just really wanted to have the time to compose the letter. You know, you just gave me those references, so I read them. I still wasn't really satisfied with the definition, so I was in the process of writing a letter to the branch. And then that's when we got someone to come here, and I just, you know, I just really wanted to clarify those answers before anything else happened.
Okay, let's real quick talk about the timing of these events, because I'd like to point out that, again, McCall does the thing where on the screen she actually writes out in text something like they gave us some publications, they encouraged me to write the branch about these questions, and then a week and a half later we were called into this judicial meeting. So here's what I'm able to gather just from, again, listening to this audio and having that explanation from McCall, is her and Jesse had questions. They were already under suspicion that they were apostates, or they had, I should just say this, they're not apostates, they had divergent thinking. And so anyways, they met with them, and it seems like they had some questions about some very specific things, which I'm sure these elders were not quite prepared for, and or if they were ahead of time, like they knew what their specific concerns were, they brought them a couple of magazines or publications for them to review. So that is the process that they follow. Basically, you have some questions, and then Jehovah's Witnesses will say, of course we're allowed to question. We're told to test all things. We're told to do our research. And then what happens is you ask a question one time, and someone answers it. And if you're still not satisfied with the answer, then you might ask it a second time. Then they hand you a magazine. If you still don't accept that answer, that's when things become a problem, because you are now divergent. You're thinking things that you should not think. You're not satisfied with our answers, so now you're an apostate, or you're certainly in danger of being an apostate. So then that's when the threats start to come in. What's interesting here is they did the meeting with them. They gave them the magazines, said write the branch, and before she even had time for the ink to dry on the paper, bam, they've been pulled into this meeting. So it seemed like they had already made their minds up, and if they hadn't, they have a very short, I guess you could say, amount of patience for this sort of thing in their congregation. Like I said, I already think that they thought they were guilty ahead of time, so that was just sort of a formality going to them and giving them the magazines. But one other thing I want to point out that McCall made the mistake of saying, and I'm being sarcastic, so McCall, if you ever see this, I'm actually on your side 100%. But he said, do you still believe that the things you grew up with, you know, do you still believe the same? And she said 90%. And that was her mistake. She didn't say 100%, I believe in the overlapping generation, I believe in the flip-flopping on the blood doctrine. I believe in the new light. I believe in all the false predictions that have happened, but somehow it was our fault as the feebly little Jehovah's Witnesses that we were. I believe in all of it. Yes, 100%. That's what she should have said. They probably still would have been disfellowshipped, but maybe it would have gone from a year of being disfellowshipped to 6 months at that point. I'm not sure. But at this point, I am rambling, so we are going to continue with this audio.
Questions about what you believe?
I think deep inside I've always questioned it, down from when my dad was disfellowshipped and why it was handled the way it was handled, to when we were in Beaver Dam and we were removed from the theocratic ministry school without being asked. There's been lots of things that have just led me to go, man, I don't feel the love anymore. Like when you're little, you feel so loved by everybody, but as an adult, it's like people just tend to back off, especially once we had kids. There was a huge unloving feeling from Beaver Dam for us even just having kids. And it just got me starting wondering
Because
why.
one of the sisters actually told you not to have a baby.
Yeah, sister told me not to have kids.
So that didn't help.
There was a sister who rearranged a card group after the CO made it, just so she wouldn't have to work with me and a kid.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of personal things that lead up to reading the Bible and seeing the message of love and just wondering why I don't feel it the way that I used to.
Yeah. Who did you talk to about those feelings or those doubts?
Nobody. Jesse, maybe. I mean, you pray about them, you try to research things, you try to find concrete answers. And that's all I was trying to do, and the answers I came up with was love. Love is so important. And that's what motivated me to call Lacey, was love. I remembered our friendship, and I remembered, some of the nice times we had together as teenagers, so.
Okay, I'd really like to point out something in case you didn't catch it. So they asked, when did you start having these doubts? And she said, I guess I've always had doubts, or at least I question, I've always had questions. Again, that's not a good thing if you're a Jehovah's Witness. You're just supposed to nod and accept every new light that comes out. Every new teaching, every change, you're just supposed to turn a heel and accept it 100%. So he asked her when she started having these doubts, and she said, the way my father's disfellowshipping was handled, I don't have any context on that from the audio so far, so I don't know, but it must have been bad. Something must have been unjust in their eyesight about his disfellowshipping, which I can believe that because most disfellowshippings are unjust. Okay, secondly, what was the other thing she said? Oh, this is a weird one. She said when we were removed from the theocratic ministry school and not told. So again, for those of you who are not JWs or ex-JWs, being on the theocratic ministry school is a part of being an unbaptized or a baptized publisher in the Jehovah's Witnesses. That means that you can go in the field service and that you also have a part during the used to be Thursday night meetings. So you'd have Bible study on Tuesday, theocratic ministry school on Thursday, and then public talk and watchtower study on Sunday. So Thursday night, for the males, we would get single speaking parts, and then for the females, they weren't allowed to teach, so they had to do a little skit where they're talking to each other. So anyways, Jesse and McCall were both on the theocratic ministry school, and at some point they were removed and then not told about it. So, you know how it is in the Kingdom Hall. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, it comes time for your part and you get a slip and there's your assignment and go and study and here's when your talk is going to happen. Well, they were probably doing multiple talks and then one day, nothing. It's just they're just not doing parts, and then other people keep doing parts and they're probably wondering what's happening, and then lo and behold, they figure out that they've been removed from the school. Very, very odd. Gosh, and there was one more thing that she brought up. Oh, okay, and then, oh yeah, this is another subject. I'm going to try and be quick, guys, but here we go. She was talking about when they had kids, something weird happened. The love in the congregation changed. Now, personally, the congregation that I grew up in, so this is not every congregation. What I'm about to talk about right now is not every congregation. The congregation I grew up in, we were a baby-making congregation, so there was kids being had every which way. So I had kids that I could play with growing up. Not everyone can say that, and it's unfortunate. There are some congregations, however, who have this weird thing against having children. And what's really strange about it is it happens to come from a generation of people who lived before, lived during, and through the 1975 debacle. So 1975, they were saying stay alive until 1975, because guys, that's Armageddon. So they were commending people in the magazines for selling their homes and giving money to the Watchtower so that they could full-time pioneer until the new order came. So there was lots of people who were selling their homes, who were losing their jobs, who were not having children. And then 1975 came and went. They turned around and blamed the Jehovah's Witnesses, the rank and file, for the false prediction, even though it's in their magazines, and that is trackable. And then so you had a bunch of people who now everything had dried up. We do not have any baby-making faculties anymore. And I don't mean to be insensitive on that, so please don't take that the wrong way if that is an area of your life that's affected. But I am saying that some people passed the clock of when they were being able to have children. And then instead of thinking that they should be mad at the Watchtower about that, for some convoluted reason, they turned around, and anyone who is younger than them, the advice they gave them is not to have children in this system of things. That to me is sick. It's a little perverse. I have zero understanding of why someone would do that, why someone would be duped by the Watchtower, stay in the organization, and then continue to resent children and people who have children because you didn't and you can't. That to me it's disturbing, but it happens. And there are congregations that are totally against children, which is weird. So anyways, we're gonna go a little bit further and then we'll probably wrap it up for today.
Go to someone mature, experienced, like when those things happen at Beaver Dam. Why didn't you talk to someone?
Unfortunately, as we explained to Alfred when we were in Beaver Dam, it actually came out in an elders meeting that one of the brothers had a personal issue with Jesse's family, and that kind of led to a lot of lack of communication between all of us. Even an elder out in service questioning me about Jesse's stepfather, and his actions, and I didn't know anything about anything, and I didn't think it was right for it. I guess I just didn't really trust completely in the elder body in Beaver Dam at the time, and we weren't in Watertown long enough to. We had 2 kids, you don't have time to talk to people after the meeting.
Yeah, we were just there for what,
six, 7 months.
Was it 6, 7 months? Wow.
Yeah.
That's when you came here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you speak to anybody here about those things? About the way you were feeling? Doubts you had?
No, I think it was more because we were finding some really good answers that were making sense to us. So we were in a process. It wasn't the beginning stage anymore. It was more of like, oh my, that makes sense. That makes sense. More of that. And it also helped us to kind of like cut the band of baggage that we kind of had.
The guilt of not being able to do what we used to be able to do.
And the idea of what's going on with imperfect men, even if they were in respectable positions, what was going on, it's like a weight off of our back, just kind of understanding they're imperfect. Vendettas happen sometimes for weird reasons. It has a trickle-down effect from my family to our family. So be it, but we just move on. And so it kind of gave us freedom from that. And so we were at that point, I think, and we didn't feel like we needed to go out and ask.
You feel any differently about it now?
Differently in how they treated us. I still feel that we were treated unjustly, but there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, it doesn't devastate us like it did
used
before, but we just know it's there,
Okay, so there's actually 2 more things that I want to touch on. So in the previous recording, not this one that we just heard, but yeah, kind of, they're asking a 2-sided question. So let me try and explain what I mean by that. One of the questions he asked is, who else did you talk to about these doubts? So that is a leading question. What they're trying to do right now is not say, hey, who did you reach out to for encouragement? They're trying to see who else they're supposed to investigate next. So they're going to disfellowship McCall and Jesse, and then they're writing down all their little notes while they're talking, And, had McCall said or Jesse said, oh, we talked to brother so-and-so, or we talked to my sister-in-law, or we talked to blah, blah, blah. And so whoever's associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses, those brothers would then know to go and do damage control with those individuals. Okay, so that question, who else did you talk to about these doubts, is a leading question to try and figure out who do we have to investigate after we disfellowship you guys. And then the other questions that they were saying is, did you talk to anyone spiritually strong here that could have answered those questions? So what they're saying is, they gave a non-answer as to whether they talked to anyone or not, and it was, I prayed about it, I talked to Jesse. So, what they're doing is encouraging you to only ask questions inside of the organization, only do research on Watchtower or jw.org, only come to us for resources and knowledge and discernment and critical thinking. We'll do all of that for you so that you can land on the conclusions that we have. Now, like I said, McCall puts text up while they're talking, and again, it will kind of seem like Jesse and McCall are giving non-answers, but they're picking up the vibe in the room. So I wanted to, maybe I'll throw this up on the screen. It says, during this part of the meeting, we sensed the elders were searching for our scapegoat. We didn't have one. We simply stopped agreeing with the Jehovah's Witness interpretation of Matthew 24:45. So this is why I want to end on this tonight. So let's go to Matthew 24:45. A lot of you already know it. Okay, so this is a proof text that the Watchtower will often quote to support the faithful and discreet slave, the teaching that there's a governing body and there's always been a governing body, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go ahead and read through it. So it says, who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his household to give them their food at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all of his possessions. Those are the three verses that the Watchtower will quote to support the teaching of the faithful and discreet slave. First of all, that is a parable. It is not a prophecy. In the same way that the proverb of the light getting brighter is a proverb, it is not a prophecy, okay? So what I find interesting about that, how you know it's a parable, is because if you continue just turning the page in that Bible and you read verse 48, it says, but suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time. And he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards, Tony Morris. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be a weeping and a gnashing of teeth. Again, this is a parable. This is talking about being faithful, even though, no matter what your circumstances are, imagine God is the master and he's away. What do you do in the dark? What do you do when no one's watching? Are you still being righteous? Are you still being kind to your neighbor? Are you still loving God? Are you still loving others? Or are you being abusive to them like this organization? You can't read Matthew 24:45 to 48 and say, yep, that's a prophecy about us, and then not read the rest of that parable, because if we were being honest, we'd have to apply the rest of that parable. You would be the wicked servant that would be cut to pieces and assigned a place where there will be a weeping and a gnashing of teeth. That would be the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. That would be the governing body, because they have been a wicked servant. So at this point, it's obvious that Jesse and McCall do not believe in the governing body. They don't believe in the faithful and discreet slave, and rightly so, because they have brains and they can read scripture for themselves. So again, you're going to start to hear a lot of non-answers and stuff like that from them, but I've already explained that. So there was a lot that came up in this video, and I didn't expect it to be so rapid fire. So hopefully I didn't talk too much and it made sense to you guys. But I really appreciate you listening. If you've made it this far, I want you to just pray for those in this organization, that they would continue to wake up, that they would continue to research, that they would watch videos online, that they would read their Bibles, that they would just wake up from all this madness. So anyways, guys, I'm sorry. It's leaving me a little heavy right now because of some personal stuff going on. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, give it a like and comment or dislike, whatever you want. And I'll see you guys in the comment section. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless.
Truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God.